Okay, so you've got this stack of articles, huh? Fascism, media manipulation.
Yeah.
Someone's been doing their homework for election season.
Looks like it.
I am ready to dive into all this with you.
Let's do it.
The core question here, and it's a big one, is are we really making decisions in a democracy? Or is someone else calling the shots?
You know, it's so interesting what we're seeing today because it's like all these classic authoritarian tactics.
Right.
But they're playing out in this like modern media landscape. So forget your jackboots and your marches, right?
Yeah.
Today, it's about controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Silencing dissent. And ultimately, it's about undermining your belief in the system itself.
Yeah, and Ruth Ben-Ghiat's piece, it just goes right for it. She calls out Fox News directly, says they've just totally abandoned like any pretense of objective journalism.
Yeah.
And that Brett Baer interview with Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on, that's a prime example.
Yeah. You're right. That interview was, that was a moment. You know, Ben-Ghiat argues that it was never supposed to be a real dialogue. It was a performance.
Interesting.
Yeah, a performance of power. A way to reinforce this whole idea that, you know, one side is legitimate and the other one doesn't even deserve to be heard.
Wow.
And think about it. Remember when Baer cut her off with his hand?
Oh, yeah.
That image, it sticks with you.
It does.
Yes.
It speaks volumes.
Yeah, for sure. And that tactic, I mean, it's not just him, obviously, but like cutting people off, using these loaded questions so they can't even answer the question.
Right.
That's straight out of the authoritarian playbook.
Oh, absolutely. It's, you know, if you look throughout history, it's a common thread.
Yeah.
When you're looking at authoritarian regimes, that's one of the things they do.
It's scary how effective it can be.
It is.
And it makes you think, you know, when Ben-Ghiat talks about a muted political opposition, this isn't just about one interview. This feels like a much bigger...
Oh, absolutely.
To really understand muted opposition, you have to kind of define it, right?
Yeah.
So basically, an authoritarian regime, they want to keep up this appearance of a democracy.
Right.
But they're seizing control of, you know, as much as possible.
Yeah.
And one of the easiest ways to do that is to silence anyone who disagrees. So what Ben-Ghiat is arguing is that groups, particularly like Fox News, are promoting this vision of America where your political opponents, they're not just people you disagree with.
Right.
They're not just people you debate. They're like put on trial in the court of public opinion.
So instead of having this like healthy debate of ideas.
Yeah, which is what a democracy should have.
It's all about just discrediting and silencing the other side.
Exactly. Think about how often you hear terms like, you know, witch hunt, right? Or deep state, like this constant like barrage of accusations.
It's exhausting.
It creates this narrative of good versus evil with no room for nuance, no room for disagreement. It's like you're being told who to trust and who to fear without any like need for critical thinking. And that's the point. They're trying to bypass that.
That's really interesting that you say that because it does seem like the goal is to just completely bypass critical thinking.
Right.
Ben-Ghiat even says, you know, Fox wants to keep viewers in this constant state of anxiety and fear.
Yes. And see, that's key because if you're at home listening to this, authoritarian regimes, they thrive on chaos. They thrive on division. They want to create this sense that things are falling apart, that you are under constant threat, and that they are the only ones with the solutions.
Right, right.
And that makes people more willing to accept these extreme solutions, even ones that undermine, you know, democratic norms.
Right, because you feel like you have no other choice.
Exactly.
It's a chilling thought. It's like they're trying to almost like short-circuit our ability to even reason.
Exactly. And that's where this whole muted opposition thing, that becomes essential for them.
Okay.
Because if you can discredit and silence any opposing voice out there, then you control the information.
Right.
Your narrative becomes the only valid one. And this is especially effective right now because we have this media landscape where we're just bombarded with information 24/7.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. And it's easy to fall prey to these tactics when you're just you're just getting hit with it constantly.
And you know, so many people think, "Oh, that'll never happen to me. I'm immune to propaganda."
Right.
But these tactics, they're so subtle, they're insidious, and they prey on our existing biases and our fears. And so we have to like be aware of that to avoid being manipulated.
Well, and Ben-Ghiat even goes so far as to compare what's happening right now to, you know, the rise of fascism in Europe in the 1930s.
Yeah. And those parallels, they are concerning.
Yeah.
But, you know, before we get too far into that, It's important to clarify here, we are not saying what's happening now is exactly like Nazi Germany.
Right. Right.
What we're talking about is recognizing patterns of behavior, understanding the playbook of authoritarianism so we can identify it and resist it in all its forms.
Okay. That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. But still, the parallels, I mean, they are there. And it makes you wonder, how do we break free? How do we break free from this cycle if we're constantly being targeted? Like, how do we think critically and form our own opinions when this is all going on?
That is the million-dollar question. It's not easy, but it starts with being aware.
So being aware, it's a start, but what do we do with that? How do we actually become, like, more discerning? Especially with all this information out there, how do we even know what to trust?
Well, it's like anything else. It's a process, right?
Right.
It starts with diversifying your media diet. I mean, are you only getting information from sources that are just going to back up what you already think? Are they prioritizing facts, evidence, or are you stuck in an echo chamber? Because it's so easy to do that these days.
Yeah.
Just consume content that makes you feel good, tells you you're right. But you got to step outside of that comfort zone.
Right.
Think about it this way. Like, if you were trying to understand some complex scientific concept, you wouldn't just read one article and be like, got it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You'd look at different sources, different data, different interpretations.
For sure.
And then you form your own conclusions. Same thing with this stuff.
That's a good way to put it. It's like we have to be investigative reporters in our own lives.
Exactly.
Which honestly sometimes feels like a lot of work.
It is.
But you're right. We can't just take things at face value.
No. Question everything. Question the source.
Yeah.
What's the agenda?
Right.
Look for evidence. And this is a big one, right? Develop a healthy skepticism, especially when you're seeing something that already lines up with your beliefs.
Oh.
Because it's so easy to let our emotions get away from us.
Of course.
It's natural. But we got to be critical, even when it feels good.
It can be hard, though, to admit that maybe you've been duped, I guess, or that, like, some things you've believed maybe need a second look.
Oh, absolutely. Challenging your own assumptions.
Yeah.
That's uncomfortable, but that's how you grow, right?
Right.
That's critical thinking in action.
It's true.
And it's not just about you, right? It's about having these conversations with everyone, your friends, family,
Oh, boy.
the people you disagree with.
Yeah. Some people are listening to this right now, and they're like, nope, not doing it.
Right.
But you're right, because it's tempting to just write those people off.
Right.
But how do you even start a conversation like that without it turning into a huge fight?
Well, and you're not wrong. It is tough. It is. But here's the thing. If we just write those people off, we're basically saying, okay, you're beyond reason. And I think we have to find a way to bridge that gap, even if it's hard. And it starts by listening.
Okay.
Really listening. Don't interrupt. Don't jump in to defend yourself.
Right.
Just hear them. Try to understand where they're coming from, what's brought them to their conclusions.
You know, it's funny because, like, I was reading through all these articles, and one thing that really struck me was this idea that we're all living in these separate realities now.
Oh, tell me about it.
We're consuming different information, we trust different sources, and it's like dot parallel universes almost.
It is.
Where you can't even agree on, like, basic facts.
Exactly right. And that's why this whole deep dive, this whole process we're doing, questioning, thinking critically,
Yeah.
it's so important. Because it's not about, my side, your side, who's right, who's wrong. It's about realizing we're all swimming in this sea of information, and we've got to figure out how to navigate it.
So I got to say, after this deep dive, I'm definitely more aware,
Yeah.
maybe a little fired up.
Okay, good.
But it makes you wonder, who else is out there trying to control this narrative? And what can we actually do about it to make sure our voices are heard?
And that's the question, isn't it? Because this isn't just about one election, right? This is about how we talk about politics.
It feels kind of hopeless sometimes,
Yeah.
Like, how do you even have these nuanced conversations when
Right.
it feels like everyone's already picked a side? That's it.
I get it. It's so easy to just get cynical, especially when it feels like you're being bombarded with all this negativity, manipulation,
Right.
But cynicism, that's a dead end.
Yeah.
Because it leads to apathy, disengagement.
Right.
And that just benefits,
The people we're trying to fight.
Exactly.
So what do? How do we stay engaged, I guess?
Yeah.
Without getting, like, sucked into all the negativity. I mean, it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. And that's why, like, self-care is so important in all this.
Okay.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
True.
It's like that, the oxygen mask on the airplane.
Right.
You got to put yours on first.
Right.
Before you can help anyone else.
I like that. Okay, so taking care of ourselves, our mental health.
Yes.
That's actually an act of resistance.
It is, because if we are burnt out, if we are disillusioned,
right,
we're just setting ourselves up to be manipulated.
Makes sense.
But when we prioritize our well-being, whether that's, meditation or spending time in nature, whatever it is, whatever fills you up, you're building resilience.
Yeah.
You're strengthening your ability to see through the noise.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's empowering.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's like the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from this?
Remember, you have agency.
Okay.
You have a voice. Yeah. And you have a choice. Don't let anyone take that from you.
That's a good one to end on.
Especially not the people trying to divide us. So stay informed, stay engaged, but most importantly, stay hopeful.
I like it.
Because it matters.
It does. And on that note, thanks for diving in.